For this episode, I'll be talking to one of my friends from the Dallas area, Russell Almand. Russell and I met at a music conference a few summers ago, and just really enjoyed talking. Found out we had a lot of things in common, a lot of common interests, and could bounce around from topic to topic pretty easily. So, uh, being involved in church music like we both are, and uh, growing up in the Christian church, Christian tradition, we had a lot of good stories to compare and everything. So, yeah, I just wanted to get him on this second episode of the podcast, and hope you enjoy my talk with Russell Almand. Well, Russell, thanks so much for joining me here. It's great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
You are guinea pig number 2.
All right.
The first guinea pig we talked about Bears, the Chicago Bears. A friend of mine
Okay.
from my old job, and we talked right before they went on their 4-game or 3-game losing streak, and so we were a little more optimistic and bubbly than
I
if.
gotcha.
Anyway, but so Russell, why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are? Maybe get to that cardinal flag in the background.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's a little cardinal flag in the background. Nicely placed. But yeah,
Well,
so my name is
the same
Russell
thing.
Almand. Yep.
Mhm.
And I'm currently a student at Dallas Theological Seminary working on my Master's of Theology. I'm about halfway done. I'll be crossing halfway. I also am I work at Choristers Guild,
Mhm.
music publishing company. I'm the membership enhancement associate,
Yeah, what does that mean
which
exactly?
no one quite knows. But
Okay.
basically, we're a membership organization, and my goal is to help um, basically enhance the experience for members, whether that's help in providing um, the correct music that someone could use. So I love being able to have people say, "Hey, I need a ladies chorus that'll fit for this season. What can I get?" And I'll try and help them look that stuff up.
Nice.
So I do a little bit of customer service, but also get to travel. That's actually where we met,
That's
was
right.
traveling
Yes.
at. So that's I get to travel for the company and talk about our music and promote our music and get to
Hmm.
serve people in that way.
Yeah,
So
I guess it'd be good to say how we met was at a music conference at
yeah.
the Baylor Alleluia Music Conference that goes on
Yes.
every summer at Baylor University. So yeah, our booths were next to each other or across from each other or something.
Right.
Anyway, we started talking and realized, hey, we got lots of things in common and had good
Yeah.
conversation. And the Cub Cardinal thing almost ended it right away, but we
Yeah.
pushed through.
Yep, we pushed through and we managed to still be civil.
That's right. That's right. So at Dallas Theological Seminary, you're getting a THM, right? Master of Theology.
Yes.
Now, how is that different from like when most people, if they go to seminary, they get an MDiv, right?
Right.
So what's
Yeah.
the
So,
yeah?
yeah, it's a little bit, the way I kind of like to describe it is if there's an MDiv, then THM takes one extra step above it. Normally, an MDiv will be like 80 to 96 hours or something of grad coursework, and THM bumps it all the way up to 120.
Whew.
So a lot of people, when they look for doctoral work, a lot of times they'll get an MDiv and then they will tack on a year of THM before getting something like a PhD or something like that. So we just kind of skip the MDiv step and do a
Gotcha.
lot of extra work. But
Is it fair to say that if you're going the THM route, you're probably going into academia rather than like getting a job as a church pastor, or is that not fair
that
to say?
it's I would say both. A lot of people do use the THM in order to progress in academia.
Mhm.
I think it's a really good um, all-encompassing degree for church ministry.
Hmm.
And the way DTS structures it is for both. So you can depending on which track you pick, we have like 24 of our hours are electives. So you can kind of gear it towards whether you want to do academia or whether you want to do ministry.
Hmm.
For me, I kind of want to do a little bit of both. I wouldn't mind teaching eventually, but I also um, I'm really passionate for discipleship ministry and would love to get involved in churches and helping equip churches to properly make disciples who make disciples.
Yeah. Now, if people who may be watching that don't know what that means,
Yeah.
discipleship, what does that mean exactly in the context of working at a church? What is discipleship? Yeah.
Right. So the way I kind of look at discipleship is a purposeful growing to be more like Christ. So that's going to look a little bit different for every person depending on their background, their upbringing, how much they already understand about who Christ is and things like that. So, being someone who is helping in discipleship, you're basically helping someone walk along the path to become more like Christ and to serve him in the ways that he has ordained, in the ways that has instructed us to do.
Okay.
And one of the biggest parts about discipleship is not only training someone to grow, but training them how to help others as well. So it's a kind of, that's why the key term is making disciples who make disciples. You're training people who can train others as well.
Okay. I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit.
Okay.
No pun intended. Pun intended. I'm
Yeah.
not sure which
Sure.
one,
Either
but
way.
but that doesn't sound like when people talk about uh, Christians today or evangelicals today. That doesn't sound like what you're describing. You sound like you're describing something else. Like when again, devil's advocate. When I think of
Yeah.
Christians,
Yeah.
I think of like trying to get certain laws passed and trying to vote for certain,
Right.
so
Yeah. Yeah. I get you. It's,
hmm,
yeah. And I think that discipleship is really the foundational key, that as we become more like Christ and as we basically structure our minds to think more like he wants us to think,
hmm,
then other parts of our lives will follow suit. And so Christianity is not just doing Bible rules, and it's not
hmm,
just doing specific things in the community. It's a full lifestyle change and relationship with Christ. And when you have that deeper relationship, and as that deepens further, then your life will reflect that,
hmm.
basically.
Do
So
you think that Christians here in the United States, do we do a good job of selling that, for lack of a better word? So, uh, yeah,
I
you know
think,
what I'm saying?
yeah, I
No,
do. I
yeah.
understand. I think that I think Christianity as a whole, as it's viewed, can often not be viewed that way.
Mhm.
And I think we, and myself included, and churches have been a part of, we because we're flawed and we are not perfect, we can often put emphasis on things that are not as important, and those can become the basic, like, crux of our argument, and that's what is public in people's eyes, when really are. And I think a lot of the motives around Christianity are all probably similar, but I think how we go about accomplishing that can often be viewed in a negative sense in from the outside world. So I think it's something we all need to work on, and whatever, that Christianity has a wide spectrum, and I think every part, it's wide because they're trying to focus on something different.
Hmm.
They have a different motive to something they want to accomplish. Some parts of Christianity are really into social justice,
Mhm.
and they see the injustice that's in the world, and they want to um, provide a way of rectifying that with the way that um, Christ wants to, build a relationship in all of us. While others might be more concerned about what just the church is in itself, and making sure the church is healthy and things like that. And so I think every section of Christianity has a goal, and I long for the day where we can all come together as in one goal.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to happen all that often, does it?
Yeah.
Seems like there's more. fighting over things that maybe in the big scheme of things aren't all that important.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what put you on this path of wanting to go to seminary and go this
Well,
route? Yeah.
well, I know that God, the easy thing is God called me to it.
Right.
But
Yes.
the longer answer, I was really like late high school. I was really just I knew I wanted to help people,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't quite know what that looked like. I was growing in the faith and really just trying to see what God would have me. I knew I wanted to work with people and help encourage people. I felt like that is a way that God has gifted me, and I wanted to utilize that. And then He just began to show me that there really was no other way that I was going to be excited about or happy doing other than being in ministry and really dedicating my life full time to encouraging others, to helping others grow, and yeah, just being uh, in a full life of service to God and His work that He's called me to.
Now, what would you? One last question here on this, and I'm
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
going along, following along with
No,
ideas
that's
pop
good.
into my head. But
Yes.
what would you say to the person who says, my experience with Christians is terrible. Um, it's hatred, bigotry, intolerance. Maybe even I grew up in a church home and I learned all these negative things about how to treat other things like that. What do you say to that person who comes from that background or had just a horrible experience in the church?
Yeah.
And we're hearing more and more stories now about people who were abused, whether
Yeah.
physically or sexually, in church context. What do you say to someone about that?
Yeah.
Like, what do you? Yeah.
Well, first I just say I'm sorry that
Mm.
they have, and the sad part about that is that that is not who the God we serve is. And that's the really sad part about the broken world that we live in, and that Christianity is still full of people who are sinners and people who are imperfect. And I wish that we could all present ourselves as completely perfect and completely like Christ, but that's not the state of the world that we're in. And I just pray that those people would be able to um, reach out and really um, I don't want to say try again, but like allow someone to speak Christ into their life. And I hope that, I know you feel the same way, that our testimonies, that as we reach out to people, that we can show that we truly do have the love of Christ and what that really looks like. It's not perfection on this earth because we can't live that way, but um, there are a lot of stories, like you said, of people who are hurting from church experiences, from experiences in Christianity, and it's so sad. It breaks my heart for those people, and I hope that they would still be open to individuals, at least, who can speak into their lives and truly show them what Christ's love is, and that what they experienced is not what Christianity is all about, even though their perception is that's going to be something that's ingrained in them. And
Yeah.
we understand that. And I pray that for Christians that we would just listen to those people and not pass judgment, but lovingly come alongside and show them what Christ's love truly is like. So,
Yeah.
so it's not a straightforward answer,
No, no, yeah.
other than, but it's something that Christianity needs to do better.
Yeah,
And
I don't
and
think there's a step-by-step process to that,
yeah,
like you said.
right.
I think different people have different baggage, and even
Hmm.
people that have been in the church their whole lives may have baggage from
Right.
something with it. So the first thing that you said about just saying sorry, I think that's big, and we Christians need to do a better job of saying that and showing that. And,
Right. Hmm. Yeah,
um,
not minimizing the experience that they've had.
yeah.
Um, ac- accepting that those experiences are real
Hmm.
and apologize for them. Yeah, I think that's a huge, huge step.
Hmm. Well,
Yeah.
may we all be able to do that. Transition from this, to something a little, I don't know if lighter is the right word, but you work for a church choir, or it's not necessarily just church music, right? It's just choir
Right.
music, but has
Yeah,
a,
even more than choir music.
oh,
So Choristers Guild is a music publishing company that's also a nonprofit organization. So our mission is to enable leaders to nurture the musical and intellectual growth of children, youth, and adults. So
oh,
we span the spectrum. So we have educational resources. We do have church music, choir music for all ages, as well as school choral music and handbell music as well.
hmm.
So we do a little bit of everything in that realm.
So church music, what
Mm-hmm.
does that mean? Because that, depending on where you go, that can mean something totally different. Like if I go to the Episcopal Church,
Right.
that's very different from if I go to the Charismatic Church.
Right. Yeah.
So, so spin that out a little bit.
Okay.
Let's have a conversation about that.
Yes. Um, for Choristers Guild, our normal churches would be more traditional. We provide choral music, which a lot of times choirs are still used in traditional churches as opposed to more contemporary churches.
And by
And
traditional, you mean choir, organ, piano,
right,
hymnals, things like that. As
right,
opposed, contemporary is going to be a band with guitar, more guitar-led, singer,
correct.
solo. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, even though there's
Just for those of you who may not
spectrums. Right. Yes. But yeah, spectrums within each of those too, as
Oh,
well,
right,
as you know.
exactly.
There's,
Right.
but yeah, we try and lend more towards choirs, and a lot of our clients are in Methodist churches and Presbyterian, and some of the more like liturgical
Mm-hmm.
churches who do that kind of a style. But we have all the way Baptist, non-denominational. It just depends. We try to offer some music that is good for all churches and all backgrounds as well. So
And I should mention that you run a podcast for Choristers Guild,
I do.
and
Yes,
it is called. Oh, I can't remember what it's called, but it's such a clever name. Can
that's
you?
right. Yeah, it's called the Open Fifth
That's
Podcast.
it. Open Fifth. And why do you call it
Yeah,
Open Fifth?
because we are the Choristers Guild, and so everything we talk about in the podcast, everything from C to G, which makes
Mm-hmm.
a nice fifth. So an
Mm,
open fifth because
and
there's
open.
no
Yes.
nothing in
Yes.
between.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's our that's a podcast that I started just this year,
Yeah.
and we actually in one of the episodes this season talked about navigating church music.
Yes.
So we
Which
did a little
is,
bit of
yeah.
but just a quick highlight of
Please,
that
yes.
one. But the main thing that I kind of talked about was communication. Every church is going to be completely different in
Mm-hmm.
how they want their music run, who the leadership is, how they want you to work as a church musician. And so having that communication between leadership and you as a musician, as well as knowing what the church's goals are for the music ministry and things like that, that is the key. But you'll have to check out the episode to hear
Ah,
a little bit
okay.
more
Yes.
on what that sounds like.
Have to send people over there. Yeah. I'll try to
Yeah.
put a link into
Okay,
when I
sounds
edit all
good.
this. But yeah, so I think for the most part, in at least in terms of the American evangelical church, we're coming out of the so-called worship wars. Is that,
Yeah,
do you think that's fair to, or an accurate assessment, or is it
I think so.
uh-oh, okay. Maybe I mean I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
I don't know. Oh, it's hard to say because it's yeah, I think as a whole, maybe yes. I think individual churches are still
Okay.
trying to debate. I think it has produced a lot of struggles, but also a lot of good conversations. I think there's churches that have said, okay, why do we do music the way that we do? And these type of, you could say, worship wars have caused some healthy conversations to happen as well. And I think that is happening in a lot of churches, which is good. But And I think that really is the key, is to understand, why you're doing worship, how you're doing it. And that's the key to all of it, I think.
Mm.
But
And you're in a unique position because, well, number one, you're studying. You're at a seminary, so you're doing
mhm,
studies of the church and church history, biblical ideas, and all that.
mhm,
You are involved in church music ministry,
right.
but then you're also working for a choir music and and not just choir music. Sorry,
Right.
I forget. So you have a
Yes.
perspective
It's
that I
okay.
think is really fascinating, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about this, was because you have like all these different
Right.
perspectives. So what has that done for you, and maybe how could that help other other church musicians or even just church parishioners who really have strong feelings on church music and what it means and what it does and what it's doing and what's dangerous or what's better. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
That is a great question. And
thank you.
I think and I think that in during, like, especially during the last 2 years, where I've had kind of, like you said, that combo,
Yeah.
one of the biggest things has been that I, I've grown an appreciation for, like, liturgical music, and a liturgical service where they follow the church calendar on a 3-year cycle, and they're very particular in which scriptures they read on which week of the year and what songs they're going to do in that week. And that's something I've never been in a church that followed that system, but I see the benefit of it in having a very structured and focused part of worship.
Mm.
But then I've also been involved in more churches with praise bands and contemporary music, playing the new hits that you'd hear on a Christian radio, things like that. And I also see a lot of times the passion behind that, and the desire to sing new truths, find new ways to, not new truths, but find new ways
Mm.
to
Good catch.
explain those truths, to
Yeah.
express them to our, yeah. So we're not changing the truths, but
Right,
in
right.
finding new ways to express them.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's really benefit in both. And so I think that's one thing that, even if a style for you is not preferred, that you can at least appreciate what people are doing by choosing that style, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It does.
understanding the motive behind why they are doing what they're doing. Many times, like, contemporary can be seen as, oh, they're all on emotion and it doesn't mean anything. But a lot of times that is trying to put truths in healthy emotion, that is a healthy praise to God and expressing yourself, while the other can be seen as, with the more liturgical or conservative traditional type, could be seen as not having emotion. But they are also just trying to communicate truths in a really God honoring way. And so even though the styles, stepping into one and stepping into the other, are going to look completely different, understanding why they're doing what they're doing can help us, at least, even if it's not your preference, but appreciate the other style. So I think that's what I've kind of learned,
Mm.
is that there's a different reason for people doing different things.
So listening again, like you said before,
Yes, yeah.
just talking with people and listening. And,
Right.
imagine
Absolutely.
that! Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't do a whole lot of that. We do a whole lot of talking at
Right.
each other
Yeah.
and others instead of um, yeah. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I do.
It's better. You got to leave the the loyalty and the shutting out what other people think or why they do some certain things. You got to leave that to the world of sports. And on that note, I'd like to ask you about how are you recovered from the NLCS?
Oh, well, the NLCS was rough.
Yeah.
But I do kind of look at the season as a whole. under 500 at the All-Star break for the Cardinals, and coming back and getting into the playoffs, winning the division. Sorry. But and beating a good Braves team and getting to the NLCS, and then we kind of showed why the first half of the season went the way it did. So,
but even the Nationals, were like 10 games under 500 at one point. So
yeah,
baseball, you never know. You just get into the dance and
right.
see what happens. But how about every road team winning in the
I know
World Series?
You almost, like, by game 7, you kind of could see it coming. It was like, it would be wrong if the home team won because the way the whole series had gone.
Well, yeah, I have some Astros fan friends that would,
Gotcha. Yeah.
Disagree, but
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you like the? Do you think the Cardinals are back to owning the division like they were in the last, early part of the decade and
I don't
last,
know.
because it's been 2 world championships in the last 15 years. That's great.
Yep, 06 and 11.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, because it's hard because this year was so streaky. I mean, we could the playoffs were a good example. I mean, going to I think we scored more runs in game 5 against the Braves than we did against the Nationals in the whole series. Sure about that. You'll have to check me on that. But
Could it even be the
it
first
feels that
inning
way.
of game 5 too?
The first, pretty much.
Wow.
It might be totally possible. But
That's crazy.
yeah, so I think that's the only thing that kind of concerns me. But we have good talent there. We have some veterans. Colton Wong just won his first Gold Glove, which I'm very happy about that. Second base. So I think he's a younger guy who's going to keep developing, and I think as long as we keep the pieces that we have and continue to build the team together, I think we got a chance to at least be near the top of the division, in the years to come.
You mentioned Gold Glove. I can't remember who did win shortstop Gold Glove, but a lot of Cubs fans are, hot that it wasn't Javi Baez. But
Baez,
I remember even. I mean, he's a good shortstop, great shortstop. Don't get me wrong, but I remember even a couple years ago when Addison Russell for the Cubs, when he was still before all his stuff happened. He wasn't as flashy as a shortstop as Javi Baez, but his defensive stats were actually better, higher. And I wondered if that's part of, Javi Baez, he's so flashy and he's fun to watch and everything, but are some things more flashy that maybe wouldn't be for a Gold Glove shortstop? Yeah, I don't know. I'm just wondering.
That's a good way to think.
I'm thinking out loud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like if a guy on the football team at my school here, if he ran and caught a pass, and okay, that's what he's supposed to do. But if I run really fast and catch a ball, people are gonna be like, "Whoa, look at that guy move!" So,
I see what you mean. That could be like that. It's they make it look too easy. Some of the guys with that are actually better defensive players. Some of those things that would be flashy. Like if you're like speed-wise, like you were kind of saying, if you can get to a ball without diving, pick it up and throw, doesn't look that great. But if you dive to get the ball, stop it at the last second, then chuck it over and barely get them, that looks flashier. But actually, the other guy could have done it without batting an eye. So I don't know. That's a theory.
I first was introduced to thinking like that actually through football in one of Brian Urlacher's last year's, former Bears linebacker Brian Urlacher, who was just freakishly fast. And there was one play he made. I can't remember if it was his last year or his second to last year, but anyway, he made a dive and intercepted a pass. And I remember thinking, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing! Look at the old guy can still move." Whereas hearing other people break down the play on sports radio and reading and stuff like that, they were saying, 3-4 years ago, he doesn't have to dive for that.
Yeah,
he just goes again, and it wouldn't look as impressive. So anyway, I just wonder about that because when Javi Baez did not win the Gold Glove, I wasn't all that surprised. Of course, I want a Cub player to win it,
Right.
but I
Yeah.
wasn't like, So anyway, but a lot of people were just so mad.
Yeah.
Look at him. He's Javi Baez. He's El Mago,
Yeah. Yeah. He is a good shortstop nonetheless, though.
He is, yeah.
I will give him that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. That might be some good thinking there.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I do some good thinking.
So. More than every once in a
while. Well, again, thanks for being here. Before I wrap it up, I do have to kind of throw out there that I have a choir piece coming out with Choristers Guild.
Absolutely. I was hoping you would.
Yeah. And it had nothing to do with our friendship. At least I don't think so. It was on its own merits. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm excited about that. I think it's March, you said it's supposed to come out, or
yeah, so we'll start it will be technically, so the way church music publishing is weird.
Yes.
So our fall release happens in like March, April. Mm-hmm. Think about it, it's when you're buying your music for that season. Mm-hmm. So sometime around March and April, you'll see we'll get it going, and we'll get that piece promoted and released and everywhere.
Then the royalties start spilling in. Oh,
there you go.
Yes, yeah. Well, hey, Russell, thanks so much for being here and chatting. And I just think with these conversations that we've had, where we just go back and forth between theology and baseball and church music, and then back to specific things within theology, and so I don't know, it's just kind of roundabout way, and I think we kind of did that today. So I hope it's easy to or not too difficult for people to track in the conversation. But
we hit a little bit of everything.
Yeah, we did. That's the goal. Touch them all, right?
Touch them all.
Yeah, touch them all.